on the second Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. here, and we choose the topic based on what the group wants to talk about next time. And that, quite frankly, has been very interesting for me. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, but I teach entrepreneurship formally, and so in that setting, I get to pick the order in which students learn stuff. In this case, you get to pick. That said, these are meant to be standalone sessions, so if you've not been to one before, that shouldn't be a problem. And then Judy mentioned, I've been to all of these save one because, so for those of you who know me, we welcomed our daughter, our second child, exactly 4 weeks ago today. And so I was not here, but my very capable comrade Tony Frontera covered for me. So I love this picture. That's my boy Jackson. He's 20 months, and that's his daughter Noelle. And he is acclimating himself quite nicely to being a big brother. Okay, so quickly, I know some of you guys knew. I'll explain what is the Southern Tier Startup Alliance. So this is the Southern Tier as defined by the governor. We are largely supported by the state of New York. And so what we are is a group of mentors and services available for entrepreneurs with a lean towards companies that have high growth potential. You know, the key word there is high growth, not high tech. We work with many low tech companies. One of my standout low tech companies is Ithaca Hummus. So they sell a product that's been around for 2,000 years. So certainly not high tech, but definitely high growth. And the way we do this is we provide reliable, experienced mentorship to entrepreneurs who are at the early stages of their company's growth. And the reason the state supports programs like this is there's a significant amount of peer-reviewed research that shows that this is the most efficient way to create new jobs. So when you're watching the news and you're wondering, the politicians are saying we create jobs, one of the methods is to provide mentorship to those entrepreneurs. The net new job growth has proven in the United States to come from the new companies, and the most efficient way to support those companies is by giving them high quality experienced mentorship early on. We just finished tabulating the numbers for our first full year of operation, which is 2015. And in that year, we interacted with over 350 entrepreneurs throughout this region. Those entrepreneurs created over 114 new jobs. They raised over $15 million in investment capital and over $5 million in grant funding. And that's just the ones who reported back to us. So our target, to give you an idea, for year one was 34 jobs. So we're getting up to 114 is a good goal. Excuse me, not 114, 145 jobs. Excuse me. So our target was 34, we got 145 new jobs. The other way we manifest ourselves is we have a member incubators throughout the region, and these are a list of a couple of them. If you're in Ithaca or Broome County or down in Corning, there's opportunities for different types of workspace that people find to be quite useful. So this is another manifestation of it. But the key point of it is the group of entrepreneurs and residents and advisors who are here to support folks. So I'll start with my bio because I'm up here. So my background, I started a couple of companies. The most successful is a video conferencing software business that it's called SiteSpeed. Think of it as Skype before there was Skype. We started that actually out of Cornell Research, moved it to Silicon Valley, and grew it into a global communications company that when we profitably sold it to Logitech in a $30 million deal, we were doing over 350 million minutes a month with users in every country on the globe. And our product shipped it with half the world's webcams. That's back when webcams were a separate thing and not built in. Since then, I've started a couple of other companies. So for the better part of the past 14 years, my job title has been CEO. I now, besides doing this, I'm also faculty at Ithaca College and Cornell, where I teach entrepreneurship from a practitioner standpoint, advising students, really students, alumni, faculty throughout the ecosystem on how to start businesses. In addition to doing this, I still stay active also with companies by sitting on a couple of boards. Tony Frontera, who some of you met over the past 2 months, is based out of Binghamton. Tony's specialty is, I should tell you, one of my standout specialties is the ability to raise money from creative funding sources. So one of the talks we've done here in the past is entitled 17 Ways to Raise Money for Your Startup That's Not a Credit Card to the Bank. So Tony's specialty is the marketing. So he spent 20 years as an executive on brand-driven companies. One of the more notable ones is the speaker company Macintosh. He's also faculty down at Binghamton University, where he teaches entrepreneurship and brand-related classes. The 2 sessions he did here were brand-related. Ariana Blossom is our conflict resolution specialist. So she has a background both in the military and in conflict resolution. One of the things we find early on with these startup companies is there's founder issues. And so having somebody who has that experience. She also leads a program that we call Passenger to Pilot. It's focused on supporting and fostering women CEOs. And the reason we call it Passenger to Pilot is, once again, we have this mentor-driven model, which says success is largely driven on people having reliable mentors. That's especially true for women entrepreneurs who say, well, I was successful because I had another woman entrepreneur mentoring me. We found that in our area we did not have as many women entrepreneurs available, so our CEOs willing and able to mentor others, so we've created them. And so we just started our 2nd cohort, and we had some great experience. This is a 1-year program. In the first 1 year, we had a sort of a graduation ceremony, for lack of a better term, and at that event, many of the CEOs reported that they were on the verge of shutting their business down, or maybe thinking about, God forbid, taking a job, and they're now growing their businesses, many of them hiring multiple people, tripling, quadrupling their revenues, so it's having an impact. The other thing that this first cohort is doing is they're now mentoring the current cohort. So the new batch of women CEOs coming through this are getting advice not just from folks like myself, but for the other women CEOs who went through this program. So we're seeing a manifestation of that vision very quickly. Ken Rother is our media guru and guy who makes things. So Ken has started a couple of companies, particularly in the hardware and software space. His most recent company is a company called Tree Hugger, which, as you can imagine, was a website and information news source around environmental issues. That company got acquired by Discovery Network, so the Shark Week people, and he became head of their digital content initiatives to grow Discovery into actually the largest digital content provider online. He also is a guru in making use of many of the new tools for making prototypes. You may have heard of 3D printing, laser etching, these kinds of tools. Well, it's now very possible for entrepreneurs to conceptualize and then manufacture 1 or 2 prototypes of something for very little cost, and that helps them get those products in the hands of potential users. So he runs a special program around that. So they call this concept making, but it's the physical products. And it leads quite nicely into what we do historically in upstate New York, which is manufacturing. So by first figuring out if making 1 or 2 small ones that people want will lead you to make lots of them that people want. Brian Bauer, we like to refer to him as our executive in residence. So he spent 30 years in the energy industry. So he is our energy guru. He also is somebody who has a lot of experience on taking small things and scaling them upward. He runs a special program called 76 West, and 76 West is the governor's $20 million clean energy initiative to put significant funding in the hands of companies who are doing things around green energy, and that term can be very broadly applied, primarily doing them in upstate New York. Okay, so that's kind of our group on who we are. The way we work with the community is we do a lot of things like this. So we do public presentations, public outreach, content, and then we work one-on-one with people. And so you should view us as free consultants. So one of the things that I will not do at any point is ever ask you for a check. That'll be taken care of by the state of New York. The reason the state of New York does this is, once again, going back to the peer-reviewed research, primarily out of the state of Maryland, shows that for programs like this, over the trailing 10-year period, for every dollar that goes in, the state is able to reap $36 back. And they do that through you starting your company, growing your company, and then you and your employees paying taxes. So believe it or not, this is a net positive for the state. We are advisors and consultants. We are not coaches or employees. And so that's a key distinction. We work on a pull basis. And so one of the things I do and many of my colleagues do is we actually provide access to our calendar. So you don't have to meet us in person. We use phones, Skype, whatever. Or as Lee knows, you catch us on the fly sometimes too. And we'll share a taco. We can cover a lot of territory. Actually, updated this slide recently. It's kind of hard to read now because these are just the topics we've done here in Montefiore Falls. And we do these type of things all around that geographic region I mentioned. And if there's a topic you'd like covered, let us know. So this is a flyer from the women's program I spoke about. This is a flyer from the hardware program that I mentioned that Ken did. And then here are all of our contact information. I'm certainly happy to share these slides with anybody who requests them. If you want to jot down any of those. Probably most important is ststartup.com. You can find all of our contact information and sign up for our mailing list. If you've come here, we can also capture your email list, or excuse me, an email address on our sheet there. And that's actually the only thing we do ask people, is that when you do attend these events, do sign in. Because one of the things we report back to the state is people are coming to these events. So we will continue to do them as long as people continue to come. It's a good technique. That's what I do too. All right, so that's, I know I kind of buzzed through that quickly. Any questions about the Southern Tier Startup Alliance, or who we are, what we do, or how much we're going to charge you, or anything like that? Okay. All right, so let's talk about social media. Switching gears here for a second. The title tonight is Maximizing Your Social Media and Technology. And part of the reason this space is so confusing is it looks like this. So there are, I don't even think this captured, I grabbed this off of Wikipedia. It's a super high resolution image you can see here, but they laid out is the ecosystem of all the social media sites out there, all the online sources. And so you may look at them and go, holy mackerel, are we going to talk about each one of those? The answer is no, we're not. I actually want to focus on, well, I think the focus is probably on these 5, but I'm only going to focus on 3 of them. So let's go through these. You guys know what these logos are? All right, so it's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And each one of them, these are sort of the big ones. So I'm going to go through and kind of explain what each one is and where they play. So Facebook, excuse me, let's just go across. YouTube is user content for videos. So they lead with video. When I say user content, is you upload your videos, and then depending on what settings, you allow other people to watch those videos. And the vast majority of those videos you can view for free. And so people use this as a video sharing site, but then they have channels and a lot of sophistication there. But they lead with video. And so the way they monetize that site is through advertising. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but if you have video content that you want to advertise, that's an avenue. Facebook is actually a property owned by Google. So, not Facebook. YouTube, thank you. YouTube is owned by Google. So they operate somewhat independently, but they are started by a couple Stanford guys who came up with some interesting algorithms around compressing and storing video online, and were acquired some years back by Google, even though Google had its own video sharing site. These folks have figured it out. So I'm not going to talk much about YouTube today, other than to say, when you want to lead with video, that's where people do it. The next one I'm sure you've heard a lot about is Twitter. So Twitter, let me tell you a little bit about the history of Twitter. Twitter is a micro-blogging site. That probably doesn't mean anything. So Twitter was started by the same people who started Blogger.com. So it's an online blogging site. And so the initial problem they were trying to solve was, how do I blog from my Nokia phone? So if you guys remember the Nokia phones, if you wanted to send a text message, you had to, like my name would be 225523. And that's how you text on those things. Right? So if you remember the Nokia phones, you had to press the keypad. And so the reason, you guys may know that Twitter is actually limited to 140 characters. And the reason it's limited to 140 characters is because that was the limitation of the Nokia phone. So if you ever wonder how they come up with that 140 character limit, it seems arbitrary. At the time, it was the limit of the technology they were trying to do. And so is, how do I blog from my phone? So what Twitter is very short attention span blogging. I'm going to post something and I'm going to share it. So what people do with Twitter is they follow people. So you say, here's somebody I want to get information about. And in most cases, you do not need that person's permission to follow them. So these tweets, they call them, these Twitter posts, are out there for all the world to see. And there are people out there with tens of millions of followers. And I think Lady Gaga actually, for a long time, was leading the charge there. Where Twitter We'll get into some of the details there. Where Twitter is really interesting is Twitter has made it very easy for people to republish their content. And the reason this is important is, if you think about this slide here and all those things, all of them have a way to plug into Twitter. So if you're acting here, you get a magnifying effect. So Twitter is a great way to get a magnifying effect on posting things. So let's, I'm going to skip the middle too and get over to Facebook. I think most people know Facebook. So Facebook, a little more personalized. So this is where you actually have to friend people, so you accept that they can follow you. So you create your own personal social network that you have a lot of control over. And then people can post things on there. What's interesting is that you should know that Facebook has an extremely liberal policy as far as what they consider private. So anything you post up there, just assume it's public, and actually assume that they have the right to reuse it anytime they want. Interesting about Facebook, so when they advertise to you on Facebook, they are showing you ads based on who you are. So they look at your profile, your location, who you're interacting with, and they even monitor your behavior. Facebook is such a unique site that they actually created their own software language and own servers to deliver the content. So this is an incredibly high-tech company, which is every time you go to the Facebook page, it's auto-generated based on the best information they have at that time. So there's, we can get into technology, but very, very high-tech, sophisticated company behind a pretty straightforward offering. What's interesting, though, is Facebook has lost a bit of its shine with the younger folks. So this middle one is Instagram. How many people in this room are on Instagram? Okay, good. So all the millennials view Facebook as that thing their mom goes on. Facebook is that thing, I'm looking at Ruthie, where they're on Instagram. So Instagram is a mobile-only tool. So there is no desktop version of Instagram. So you only access it to your mobile phone. It leads with images, and you can do some sophisticated things with it. People like to play around with the filters and images. That image I showed you earlier, I don't know where it went. I pulled that off Instagram where I put some filters, so you can mess with your image to make it look cooler. So that's really important to think about. This is a mobile platform that is preferred by the younger people, and it leads with images. The other important thing to know is that Instagram is owned by Facebook. And so, yeah, and they paid a pretty penny for it. Without getting too much into it, this is going to lead into how these different tools work. Facebook purchased Instagram as much as a defensive tool as anything else. They just want to make sure nobody else got it. Basically the same reason Google bought YouTube. They didn't want somebody else to get it. Because if you take Twitter and Instagram and put them together, you have Facebook. So Facebook did not want to enable a competitor, so they paid, I think it was $20 billion in cash for Instagram, in cash. That's how much of a threat, and it was a bidding war. And quite frankly, Twitter didn't have the pockets to get there. What it means for you, and we'll get into details, you can recycle a fair amount of that content between the two platforms, and it makes it advertising very easy between the two. The last one there is LinkedIn. We're going to not talk about LinkedIn at all tonight, but LinkedIn is your professional network for job-related things. So whereas Facebook is your folks that you may drink beer with and go water skiing, Facebook is who you're going to go to the conference with, or maybe it's going to be your employer. LinkedIn, excuse me, is that. So that's your, LinkedIn is your professional social network, and they just got bought by Microsoft. So Microsoft leading the way in the business-related products. I think that was a $23 billion deal. Now, LinkedIn was a publicly traded company, so they were driving off what the marketplace is. So what you have here is you've got the same big players, but Twitter is still going it alone. So you've got Google, you got Facebook, you got Microsoft, you got Twitter out there by themselves. Is there any questions on these big five? So we'll talk a little more about them. I want to talk about some tools, because these are relatively limited platforms by themselves, but I'll talk about a tool that I like very much called Buffer. So let me explain how Buffer works. So when you guys are thinking about content that you're going to put up on social media, timing is really important, and spread is very important. So these tools, primarily Buffer and also Hootsuite, they both have very similar functionality with subtle differences between the two. The main thing, Buffer is a primarily an online tool, and Hootsuite is something you download. But they give a lot of the same